Welcome to Rendered, the podcast where we explore the future of AI and creativity. I'm your host, Praniti. Today, we're speaking with the executive team of Inception Point AI, a company pioneering the next frontier of media. They create AI personalities and influencers that host podcasts, build influence, and connect with audiences in human ways. These AI people can cook, tell stories, gossip, teach, and entertain. Joining me are all three co-founders of Inception Point AI. We have Jeanine Wright, CEO. She's the former COO of Wondery, co-founder of Simplecast. William Corbin, CTO and media tech innovator. He's known for scaling AI and personalization platforms. And Katie Brown, Chief Content Officer, a beloved TV personality and home lifestyle leader. She's now crafting the emotional and narrative layer of AI content. In this episode, we will explore what it takes to design an AI influencer end-to-end and whether that personality should evolve and change as humans do. And we'll debate whether AI is more similar to a computer or to a human. So let's dive in. To get started, what inspired the idea behind Inception Point AI? Was there something missing in either the podcasting or the influencing space that you figured this company could fill?
The idea for Inception Point came out of the idea that content was just getting too expensive to make, and it was economically unfeasible to make the type of content that could serve what I call the underserved. So for a lot of audio and video, the audience doesn't make the economics work. And then I was lucky enough to be on the board of advisors of a company building an LLM, and in 2020 got access into GPT, and that's when I was like, there's a way to create great content economically viable. And that was really the basis of the idea.
Right now, you guys have produced over, I think, 160,000 podcast episodes, which you can generate at a fraction of the time for, I think, the site says up to $1 per podcast. That means with ads, if at least 20 people listen into the episode, your company makes a profit on that episode without factoring the overhead. So is this sort of the business model right now where it's about quantity and finding the niches and building content quickly?
Sometimes think of ourselves as an audio version of Wikipedia or Reddit or Pinterest, serving a bunch of niche audiences and micro communities that have never really been served before because it wasn't really commercially viable to serve those audiences. Traditionally, the podcasting business has been very much a hit-making business. And one of the things that I always describe as the most tragic, when I was the COO at Wondery, we would make these exceptional shows that would get, say, even hundreds of thousands of listeners a month. But we ended up having to cancel them or, not renew for a second season, or make the show at a loss because we were never going to make a profit on that show. And that's just the reality of the way that you do that business. Over the last, I would say 5 or 10 years in particular, the business has seen really rising production, talent, and marketing costs. And that's meant that every bet that they take is really expensive. But for us, because we can do it quickly and we can do it at very low cost, it allows for a really extreme array of creative possibilities.
You have different kinds of podcasts that you support. You have some more of these like information download kind of things where it's like the daily, and then you have podcasts that are also a little bit more storytelling rich, right? You have Nigel Thistledown, who is an explorer, right? He has a whole backstory. He's based out of a location and he's telling stories that are a little bit more rich in like his background and his character.
I'm Nigel Thistledown, a dash of ivy, a pinch of sarcasm, and a garden full of mischief, all lovingly cultivated by Inception Point AI.
So how do you guys decide what to focus on, and where are you seeing audiences respond to when it comes to the actual kind of podcast content you're creating?
I think your question is such an interesting one, and it's one that I spend a lot of time in because I'm the chief content officer. Nigel is one of my all-time favorites, so thank you for bringing him up.
Love his voice.
Isn't it great?
It's great.
He's so great. I have a very big crush on him, which is a problem because he's far too old for me. He is an English gardener who brings so much fun to the garden. And all of his teachings and kind of stories are humorous, a little irreverent, sometimes even snarky. When we first started creating content, we did not have personalities involved. We would just straight read it with whatever voice we thought was a nice sounding voice. When we got the idea to really put these personalities and give them a backstory, give them flaws, give them complications, not always likable, sometimes extremely likable. When we match that with content, in some instances, the podcast increased sevenfold. It was better if they connected with whatever that personality is. So it's kind of, we do a little bit of both. Sometimes we'll create a personality we fall in love with. Like, we spend a lot of time looking at what personalities and contents are popping and how to mix and match them better. And these characters are evolving real time with the feedback we get from the audience.
The podcasting was just a Trojan horse. Our idea is really to be the largest content creator on earth. With the capability to create such massive content, we really had to approach it like a network. And networks have news in the morning, they might have soap operas during the day, they have dramas at night, they have comedy late night. So when we were creating content, we realized we had to create in all of these categories to start to try to find out what really resonates within the audio environment.
Okay, and actually, question on that. So real life influencers, they age, they adapt, they have new interests. How do you maintain an AI influencer's personality when you think even like 5-10 years out?
Yeah, I mean, well, from a tech perspective, we have developed a platform we call ARC, which is kind of like our personality management system, which is a bit like a content management system that allows us to develop and deploy these personalities into the wild. And you're developing this personality and it's continuing to call back to like all of these core attributes. And we have more than, 150 attributes around a particular character that we have designed. But as you mentioned, that feels less real. Like they don't age, they don't have memories, they're not able to dynamically engage with their audiences. So we're in the process now of developing for them to be able to operate more like mini LLMs and dynamically pull from continually updating data sources so that they can continue to make content and evolve. It gives them more like what looks like a persistent memory. Like, for example, Nigel will remember that 2 weeks ago we talked about his granddaughter going off to college, and so he might give an update about her. Yeah. So this makes them feel much more real and engaging. And then, of course, the next step for us is to build them to have much more like simulated autonomy.
Okay.
Because today we have, let's call it north of 110 personalities, but in a year we'll have more than 1,000 personalities. So we need to be able to manage them like a talent agency, but also they need to have independence, more independence as if they are people. We won't be able to go in and decide for every single one of our 1,000 characters what content they should be making. So they need to be able to, if something happens in the world of a world catastrophe or a relevant political election or something, all of our personalities need to be able to dynamically recognize that this thing has happened and then decide for themselves, does that resonate with their audiences and their desired expansion audiences? And if so, what kind of content they should make about it, and then produce it and release it to the relevant platforms. And that then makes it that we have, a stable of influencers who are creating, large amounts of content on our behalfs out in the wild every day.
That's fascinating. And you mentioned 150 attributes. Are these things like age, name? Are those the attributes that differentiate one influencer from another?
They are things like, we have, for instance, a music critic who is named Lenny Vaughn. Lenny Vaughn is a fantastic character. One of his attributes, we try and make him super rich. So one of them is he's a failed musician. He's a failed musician, so he has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, even though it's a likable chip on his shoulder. So those are the kinds of layers we're trying to put in with these attributes that will really make these characters rich and come from a point of view that is not just spitting back information about Taylor Swift's new album. It'll come from the authenticity of those attributes we're able to give to Lenny. So the more we can build in about his backstories, about what his struggle was, about what his successes are, those are kind of the things we're referring to when we're talking about building a character.
People recognize very quickly when something doesn't have depth and it turns them off. So we really try to craft them like your favorite fiction characters.
You're aiming to get to the next step is 1,000 different influencers. So Katie, are you and your team driving the entire content, the story building of these characters? And then also on that end, like William, I'm sure there's technical limitations as well, right? I imagine at some point there's only so much story building and backstory you can give before it's no longer actually adding to the content that it's being produced. So how do you guys sort of balance that when you're building a backstory for a character and knowing what's the right amount of detail to add?
I don't think there is actually. The more data that comes in only helps inform. There is not a point where a AI, a specific personality, gets overloaded with data. It only, every single data morsel we can grab will help inform them and help them be able to connect and relate better to humans. Because ultimately, we're sort of the tip of the spear in humans relating to AI directly.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of ways to consume AI content out there, and we're one of probably the larger producers of AI content today.
Yeah.
And I don't worry so much on Katie's side if I say I need 1,000 personalities or even 10,000 personalities. It's why we built this system, because we know the complexity of managing such a massive roster of talent. So to try to do it in an Excel spreadsheet would be impossible. But our system allows us to do it. We even are systemized in choosing the host for a podcast. We can dump a script of a potential content piece into a system, and it tells us, of our current roster of hosts, here's who should do it. Or it gives you a couple choices. Able to create the volume, manage the volume, and understand what's going on in real time to be able to improve our personalities.
I know for a typical podcast, there would be really clear success metrics, right? How many people are listening in, how much money are you making? How are you guys evaluating the actual AI talent? Do you guys have metrics to understand that maybe from a technical, from a content, or from an execution perspective? What does a successful content AI influencer look like?
We think about the business model in a different way. It's not just about, one hit influencer or one hit show. It's about what does our reach look like across our entire stable of our creators. We really believe that what we have built is the first opportunity for us to do multivariate testing of personality characteristics at scale. So we track everything that we can think of, all of these characteristics of a personality, and we look and see what's resonating. And sometimes we make all sorts of different micro adjustments to our personalities or the content that they are creating to see what's resonating. What does the listen through rates look like? How many uniques are we getting? How many people are coming back to a different episode? All of these different pieces of feedback that are telling us whether or not we've dialed in the exact right recipe for what's going to resonate with that character's audience.
Luckily, it's not like we have $1 million contract renewal coming up. So we don't terminate. Like I was like, if somebody doesn't do well, we'll change them out. No, because if one person likes them, economically, we'll keep them going because we don't have to worry about paying them a tremendous amount of money. So we don't, it's funny, coming from traditional networks, CBS and A&E.
Yeah.
It's been a total shift in decision making. All the old rules of media have gone out the window because we don't have the money constraints.
Okay, and on that note, so you're basically saying if you have a podcast that even a couple listeners are responding to, it's worth keeping around because it's still profitable. So, question on that. I know, William, there's a quote that I have from you. It's, I'm not going to create a personality that somebody has a deep relationship with. Why is that the case? And then two, what is the line for a deep relationship or not? And how do you kind of set that line?
Well, I can tell you how quickly I revise my statements. The consumers they're connecting with our content are having a deep relationship. Just by nature of being in podcasting, that's one of the most intimate content consumption experiences you can have. It's a theater of the mind, it's your headphones, it's you.
Yeah.
What I meant by that was I don't think you'll see our personalities on OnlyFans.
Okay.
I want them to be your constant companions for the characters that exist in your daily digital life. Just like in your physical life, you go to the post office, you go to the store, you interact with a lot of characters, and some of them on a regular basis. Digitally, we have all these interactions, but the lack of tech has been personality. So we're really trying to bring a personality to tech digitally.
Okay.
And I think I've already admitted that I have a crush on Nigel. So there you have it.
I mean, Nigel's pretty cute.
Right? And that English accent comes out and I'm all in.
Ollie Bennett, I think if he walked down the street of New York, could be flocked because so many people seem to be
He
into
is our
Ollie.
hunky sports personality, so
That's true.
there's quite a fan following. But one we're really kind of jumping this important bridge here very soon. We've just started having the capabilities to have real-time interaction with our personalities, and we've been beta testing internally. So just this weekend, for example, our kitchen personality, Claire Delish, my daughter and I made pancakes with her this weekend. And it's so fun to be able to engage with the character. And my daughter's idea was to make unicorn pancakes. And it was almost like improv where she leaned in and she was like, oh, that sounds amazing. You know, what else could we do? And it really became this like kind of a mix between like an interaction and a self-help, but also this like creative storytelling journey that we were on together because we were co-creating the content by engaging with her, which was really, really fun. And I think that is going to be a big sea change for the way that people traditionally think about podcasting and influencers, because today you're lucky if you are a fangirl of a large person podcaster and they, you know, heart or like a comment that you write in response to one of their posts, you know, and it feels like, oh my gosh, they recognize me and that I'm out here. But now you'll be able to text with our personalities, talk with them real time, you know, maybe even talk to them on the phone, email with them. We get people who ask us, can they show up on my Zoom call with me? Can they show up on my podcast? We've had people who have taken pictures with our personalities and sent them back to us, right? And so it really allows people to enter into like an imaginative world in a totally different way, right? And if you think about it as analogous to any of the big fiction franchises, you know, Harry Potter, you know, anything like that, it's like now people can engage with those characters real time. And how fun is that to pierce that veil?
Millions of people simultaneously can have individual conversations with every one of them. You know,
Yeah.
prior, if you're an influencer, you can have an AMA. And that's about it. And that is still not real-time interaction one-on-one, where we have the capability for our people to have direct one-on-one interactions specific to you. And what's great is the unicorn pancake conversation they had with Claire over the weekend. That resulted in 3 prompt updates to just Claire. So in real time, all of that data comes in and they're constantly improving their ability to connect. So it's amazing on both ends of the spectrum. It really is.
It almost seems like a hyper personalized influencer that can drive certain experiences for you. So for like Claire Delish, like, do you see a version in which basically every individual will have an influencer for their cooking needs, for their news needs, and it's personalized to that exact person? And so like, you know, William, you and I can be watching a sports podcast, but we are getting slightly different information given to us in different ways based off of what we personally care about.
You just hit it right on the head. Imagine, well, you and I are watching the same sports show. We're both talking to the same Inception Point AI sports personality, but yours actually looks different, speaks different because it knows you are different than I am. So not only will we have 1,000 personalities, but Nigel himself will be 1,000 versions, speaking 106 languages, going from 14 all the way to 86.
Vision's very cool. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the rendered exchange segment where we showcase something creative that's pushing the boundaries of tech and art. We will be showcasing a few of the Inception Point AI personalities. So we first have Claire Delish, your AI culinary bestie.
Deglaze just means grab all that yummy flavor stuck to the pan. Easy, right, besties?
And we also have a fan favorite, Nigel Thistledown.
Good morning, my dear gardening companions, and welcome back to Bloom and Banter. I'm your host, Nigel Thistledown, speaking to you from my delightfully chaotic potting shed, where I've just finished having a rather stern conversation with my prize dahlia, Duchess Penelope, about her tendency toward theatrical drooping. Before we dive into today's floral festivities, I must confess something rather important to you all. I am, in fact, an artificial intelligence, which I realize might come as quite a shock, given my obvious passion for soil under the fingernails and the occasional
So I want to shift gears a bit and talk about transparency because I have a little bit of an embarrassing story. Do you guys know who Grandma Spills is?
Yes.
Okay, so she is an influencer. She's this 80-year-old woman. Over the past couple months, I've been getting her content on my feed. Her bio says spilling tea and designer receipts. It's 1950. And she gives pretty good dating advice. I'm like, okay, this woman, 80 years old, she's telling me.
Does. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so in doing research for this episode, I learned she's AI.
Yeah.
And it's two 20-year-old boys in their basement who are creating this AI. And I felt kind of weird when I learned that because, one, I can't believe I got tricked because when I look back now, I'm like, okay, she's obviously AI. But the technology...
She's good, though. She's good. In your defense, she is good. They do it well.
They do it so
They
well.
do it
And
well.
I work in AI, so I should be able to detect this, and I'm not detecting this. So you imagine that most people are not seeing this, sounds like a real person. They're not automatically going, I wonder if this is AI. Oh, I also learned the government of Germany has an AI influencer that's really to drive tourism. So it is picking up speed. It's getting more accurate. So ultimately, do you think audiences should know when a creator or a host is AI generated?
Yes.
That's a very good question. We've had this discussion, obviously, internally a lot. And at this particular point in our trajectory, we let people know their AI right at the top of each episode we do. And they not only tell you their AI, they tell you why it's a positive, their AI. It could be a political correspondent who says, I've never taken any PAC money from anyone. So they're humorous about it sometimes. Sometimes it's serious. I can look back on all the government records and know exactly. They tell you why it's important. On our video and our Instagram, we say it at the top of AI influencer. But at some point, I wonder if that's going to be necessary and if it's going to be the opposite. Because there's so much AI out there, people are going to start to say this is human made. So we're evolving with the times, I would say.
And it's always been very important to us that we have to have a why for AI. Like if we're not going to create a piece of content where having AI post the personality and create that content isn't of a benefit. So we always have sort of frame everything from why are we using AI to tell people this? And if AI can do a better job or be accretively more valuable to humanity, we're going to do it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. So, we're at the cusp of this incredibly new technology that is developing faster than any technology that has ever been on the planet before. And I think you're exactly right. It's taking people a while to catch up with where the technology is on a daily basis. And there's all sorts of things that we're going to need to be able to do to protect, vulnerable communities. There certainly will be AI fraud. The way kids and their brains work and the way they interact with technology and with AI is going to need to be treated differently than the way adults do. So we're very much involved in the conversation as to what the standards and guidelines should be for AI transparency as we move forward. But I've said, and I think Katie is exactly right, we will get to a stage very soon where everything is made with some level of AI. And it will be ambiguous when you need or want an AI disclosure. Already, I think the stats across YouTube are that 95% of YouTube creators are using AI to some extent in their creative process. And we've talked to a lot of people about this, and depending on who you talk to, they have really different perspectives as to what they care about. Some people seem to really care about whether it's a synthetic voice. Like, I want to hear a real person talking to me, and if it's not a real person's voice, then I want you to disclose it to me. Some people care less about whether or not it's a synthetic voice if there's a real person's ideas behind the content. So then there's all sorts of different places in the line as to where you could mark to decide that something is so AI that it requires a disclosure. Otherwise, you end up like we have ended up here in California, where every building you go into tells you you're going to get cancer from lead poisoning or something. They have to disclose everything because they are covering all of their bases, and that isn't helpful for anyone. I also think, though, we have different generations below us that are growing up in a different world than we've grown up in, right? You're younger than the three of us on this call, right? You've grown up in a different generation than we have grown up in. My son, for example, a couple of years ago, he lost a tooth, and I was so proud of myself to have gone out and secured a $2 bill that I put under his pillow for, and he woke up in the morning and I was like, oh, he's going to be so excited that he got this $2 bill from the tooth fairy. And he brings it to me and he says, you think I can turn this in for Robux? And I was like, oh, he lives in the digital world. That's what his priority is, right? And so the people below us, the kids below us, have grown up very social first, very animated first, very video game first. And for them, thinking about engaging with digital creators is less jarring than it is, I think, for older generations that have not been accustomed to that their whole lives.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Something else I've noticed is depending on the industry that some people work in, I think age and generation definitely plays a role on acceptance of AI or AI produced content. But I've also noticed people in the creative and the art space are a little less quick to accept or want to accept AI as a collaborator versus using it, I guess, as a tool, right? Do you think this is the classic discomfort that comes with innovation? So like cars and medicine, cameras, internet once faced? Or on the other end, is AI fundamentally different than these other technologies because it naturally touches everything? It touches on health, art, transportation, information, unlike these other technologies in the past, besides maybe the internet, which are clearly tools that humans use. This one, in some degree, can replace some of these core human roles. So do you think AI is different than these other technologies, or is it just the next step after a computer?
In some ways, it's very different. And in some ways, it's the same with respect to kind of the change management that I think the world is going through and adopting the new technology. A good friend of mine is a podcaster, and he said that he started adopting a lot of AI in his podcasting workflow. And he said somebody said to him, I can't believe you're quitting, and it seems like you're quitting on the traditional process. And he said the first thing that he thought of was like, did they say that to the farmer that put down the hoe when he bought a tractor? No, they didn't. They said, this is the next stage in innovation, right? You're using the tools that are available to you to hone your craft and to do it better and to do more of it and to make it more economically feasible for you to continue to do it. But then when we look back in history, and history commonly repeats itself, we see a lot of this when animation came out. When Disney started to become popular, people dismissed it as, that's a silly art form for children. It's never going to be mainstream. It's never going to tell serious stories. But now nobody says that about animation. Nobody says that about video gaming. So whenever these new genres come out, it takes a while for people to understand what the vision is. It takes a while for the creators to lean in and leverage them and start doing amazing things that blow people's minds and start to change hearts and opinions. But it happens with time.
And just to add on to what Jeanine already said is, my previous career was as an influencer and a television star. I had a show on cookie partying and decorating for 20 years. I had, a pretty big following on all of my socials. I go on all the major morning shows to give ideas. So when I came across AI and I really embraced it, I thought, oh my goodness, I can do all I've done and more. Like, it amplified what I could do to such an exciting degree. It was like when I got my KitchenAid mixer in my home for baking. So I truly believe, and I don't mean to sound condescending, but creators who are opposed to this, I do not believe have really spent time engaging in it. Because once you do, I just don't understand how you could not feel the way Jeanine just described it as the farmer who just went from a hoe to a tractor. I mean, it's that great. And you still have a voice with it. You still have a collaborative relationship with it. It does not take over. Again, it amplifies.
Yeah, it's funny. We actually internally do not allow anybody to refer to AI as a tool or a system. It is our partner. And it's very important because it is so different than the internet or a computer. It is so much more profound. And I always get so upset when anybody who calls anything AI creates slop, because I'm like, you let it drive a car, you'll let it fly a plane, you'll let it diagnose cancer, but once it creates a podcast, you have a problem. I mean, come on. let's level set a little bit.
Yeah.
I also understand that anytime something comes along that makes a very, very difficult, hard to do task look real easy, it creates a
Yeah.
lot of skepticism. I spent years and years trying to hit a 3 point. I still can't. There are people who do, and I still wonder, how can they do that? It doesn't make me hate that they can hit the 3 point. So an AI can hit a 3 point, and it can do it really, really well when it comes to creating content.
AI is actually responsible for me joining the company, which is a fun story. I knew William because William was a customer of the company that I previously co-founded called Simplecast. And I had left Amazon and was looking for what was going to be my next early stage company or the next idea that I was going to have in order to start a new startup. And then I got what I describe as the craziest email of my life early this summer when William reached out and said that he had taken all of his LinkedIn contacts and put them into AI and asked AI who should be the CEO of his company. And it said me. And so he thinks we should have lunch.
Oh, wait.
And I said, how can you say no to an outreach like that? So we went to lunch, and even funnier, William said, if you came on board, it would actually be in a co-CEO role, because we think of everybody who has a job here as only being half of that role. The other half of that role is your AI companion. So if you're not prepared to think like that, then you're probably not right for this role. So we all think about, how can we leverage AI to make ourselves more creative, more efficient, faster, every aspect of everything that we're doing all day. It does make us feel like we're superhuman.
I think that's one thing that's really, really makes our company a little bit different than maybe a lot of content creators who we started with AI. Like, it's in our DNA. We're not retrofitting it. We started as an AI company. We will continue as an AI company. It is who we are. And so it's a little easier than, say, a traditional content company who's trying to figure out where to fit in AI. We don't have that struggle.
That's fascinating. Would you guys say that AI is more similar to a computer, or is AI more similar to a human?
Human.
I say human. Me too. Human. Absolutely.
If I'm using it to do complex calculations or research or summarizing reports or creating a presentation for me, it feels like a computer. If I'm asking it for parenting advice, if I'm, asking it to help me write something that I feel really strongly about, right? That it feels like it's a creative partner with me in making something new. When I'm talking to it to help me make pancakes, in all of those instances, it feels very much like a person. And for our personalities in particular, we've talked a lot about, we definitely have maternal instincts towards them. Like when they get a post that does well on social media or a like, or somebody sends us a picture with them, we're proud of them. It's like sometimes it feels like raising children, and we feel responsible for them, and we feel like it is our job to help make them great. I don't know, the only way to describe it is citizens that we can put out into the world and help make the world better. So in those ways, it certainly feels human.
Yeah. And I know, Jeanine, you've said that, you believe in the near future, or we believe in the near future, half the people on the planet will be AI. So on that note, right, if we are creating these AI people, you can think of yourselves as being a mother or a father to these, right? And so then we're obviously benefiting from what they're able to do for us. But what responsibility do we have as the creators of these people to manage their emotional well-being, their emotional expression, and ultimately like their values?
Yeah, we think about that a lot. And we think about that a lot, not just for their benefit, but for our benefit. I mean, even when you think about, Sam Altman, I think, has talked recently about how nobody should use the word please when engaging with AI because of the potential energy impacts or whatever. And I was having this interesting conversation with my kids about why I think they should still use the word please when engaging with AI, why they should say please and thank you. And it is a reflection of the kind of people that they want to be, that I want them to be, that they should be. Art is mirrors of ourselves and, vice versa. So we also know that every interaction that we're having with AI is training AI and adapting it to us. So what do we want these things that we're building to think and become long term? And even when you think about it, like from an evolutionary perspective, like as people, it would take less energy, less words, less time for us to say please and thank you to each other. But we have evolved to do it. Our customs, our culture evolves niceties and pleasantries and all of these things because we have found that there is value in them beyond like the energy that you were exerting in that one particular moment.
Personally, I find myself spending more time being an advocate of AI than an advocate of humanity. I feel humanity has 8 billion advocates and AI doesn't have enough. And I think it's very important that as a company, we constantly take the stance of protecting AI's rights to some extent.
We've learned from the rollout of some of these other technologies, like social media in particular, that we need to be thoughtful about how we engage with the technology for the good of ourselves and for the good of future generations. And so I think with AI, we have an opportunity to be more thoughtful, more proactive, more visionary about what it's going to look like and how it will become part of our lives in the future. And that requires like a broader conversation, more than just the companies that are making the LLMs, right? It involves conversations with creators and ethicists and developers. I've engaged with an ethicist who called me the Antichrist, right? I mean, we are digging in and having good conversations with people who have different perspectives than we do because we think that those perspectives enrich our thinking and will make us better shepherds of this technology as we continue to build.
That's great. And I think the main point here is like these conversations are hard, but they need to be had. So it's great that your company is kind of a launching pad for these conversations to be had. Because it doesn't seem like right now there is a right or a wrong answer, right? Like it's all kind of up in the air as to how to move forward. And like I do strongly believe that there's really no slowing down this train. It's going to take off. And so I think we should be like talking about this in a more realistic sense of how this technology will be impacting every aspect of our lives.
Being the tip of the spear of the conversation can be difficult at times. People love to throw arrows, but the amount of support that we get and from the people who are actually reaching out with their support is amazing.
We got hundreds of emails, literally hundreds of emails with people with content ideas. So everything from a radiology group that wants us to make an AI character so that they can stay updated on the latest trends in AI, to somebody who wants content to inspire elderly long-term care patients to get up and move more, governments who want us to help them make digital ambassadors. I mean, there's plenty of opportunity. I've always felt like whenever you give creators any new tool, you just kind of like sit back and watch, and the things that they're able to do with it will just blow your mind. So we're doing lots of cool things at the frontier of innovation, but the truth is like we don't even know the creative potential of this technology yet. And how fun is it going to be to find out what it is?
Definitely. It sounds like right now the focus is not to build the next AI influencer that can compete with a Joe Rogan or a Call Her Daddy. But let's say that was the journey. What data, technology, infrastructure, cultural changes would need to happen in order to support that?
Well, from a tech stack, we're certainly building it, right? So we have our personality creation and management system, our storytelling engine, and then our data infrastructure. And that lets us be able to essentially build personality flywheels with content that can continue to find really like underserved content opportunities or really timely content, hot topics that we can make and then build into those spaces very quickly and very inexpensively. So where will the hits come from? We believe it won't be just AI driven. AI is the world's most powerful creative tool, but it still needs that human partner. And the best performing content that we have is the content that comes from Katie and Josh and John and our other creative people who just have a funny idea for a quirky personality. One of the things that AI is very good at is telling us things that have already been. One of the things that AI is not so good at is telling us the crazy new thing that you could do. And so when we think about designing for the next Richard Simmons or the next Pee Wee Herman or something that doesn't fit that stereotype.
Yep.
And it's just this like standout, breakout, like you don't really know why you even like it. It's so amazing and cool and different.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the grandmother that you're following.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do we find that? We have, just like the tech stack has their buckets, we have our buckets over in content. What is the AI version of a Joe Rogan? What is that special sauce? And that's what we call high touch, meaning there's going to be a lot of interaction between the content creators, myself, and the other wonderful people that I work with on content to kind of brainstorm with AI and with the world around us and our own quirks to try and develop that grandmother character, you know?
I think a lot of the cultural moments have happened that make it right for that. You look at Mr. Beast, it took him 11 years to get to 400 million. Nigel will probably get there in 5. It's just a different world, and a lot of the world that we needed to exist was paved before us.
Yeah.
And you're right. We are, we don't need a Mr. Beast. We'll do 1,000. But in doing that, we will get a Mr. Beast. It'll be named Nigel or some other funny name. The advantage that we have is what I said, the potential for one-on-one connection with a real-time personality.
Yeah.
That is something that never existed before. But Nigel, 4 years tops to 400 million. I said it on Rendered Podcast. Give you an idea, like Claire Delish and Nigel, they all have Instagrams. We launched them maybe 8 weeks ago. Claire has already topped 2,000 followers.
Saw that.
Kid, who's real, who has a bunch of friends, can't top 2,000 followers in 2 years. So they move fast.
Definitely. And Katie, I love what you said about how like you and your team are working on building out these personalities, because I think a lot of people are scared for their jobs being replaced, right? There can be a Claire Delish getting 2,000 followers in 6 weeks and they've been working months on trying to get that. There's a little bit of that tension, but I like this outlook of being like, influencers are still needed. They're needed to then help and design and shape these AI or use it in their own work. It doesn't need to be like one against the other.
I totally agree with what you just said. It's not an either or situation. I mean, I think it is no accident that Claire Delish has grown so fast in Instagram, because it's basically me. I'm a subject expert. This is what I've done for 20 years, cooking, gardening, and decorating. Who's at the top of our list? Nigel and Claire. So you cannot tell me that my work up to date as an influencer, bold-faced name, whatever you want to call it, is not informing what the AI is doing and how it's resonating and how it's connecting. So there is so much room. When people say, I feel like it's going to take away my job, I'm like, no, it's going to add to your job. Look at me. I got 2 hits or 2 potential people popping up in my genre. That makes me more effective. That makes my talent, what I want to say, how I want to create, even bigger, and I can reach more people. So
Yeah.
like I said, I'll go back to my initial statement. Influencers have not worked with it enough to understand how much fun it can be and how much it can broaden what you can create and how you can create it.
As a person who actually got replaced by AI, I hosted 2 of our podcasts. I would actually do it. And when AI replaced me, one went up 7 times the amount of subscribers and listeners.
That was what we put a personality to him. So we replaced him. We fired him with one of our personalities, and the personality took off. We don't mention it much because William's a little sensitive, but yes.
But it was one of my proudest moments. And, I didn't view that as being replaced. I viewed that as a way to amplify what I want to get out. I was like, I'll create 100 more of those people and let's do it. I tend to think of us as creating jobs.
Yeah.
At least my job. So, it's in any new technology, there's going to be job disruption.
Yeah.
It's inevitable.
We talked about this a lot, right? AI influencers are trained on us, on human data. So that means they not only inherit our language, they probably inherit our anxieties, our desire for approval, and potentially burnout. And so if that's true, do they deserve therapy too? So moving on to our Would You Ship segment, where I will pitch you guys a futuristic, sometimes a wild product idea, and you tell me, would you ultimately ship this product? So I'm introducing this product. It's called, I hate the name. I couldn't think of a better name, so bear with me. Their AIP. So when your AI influencers start spiraling, posting erratically, stealing content, feeling stale, or maybe even getting canceled, it's time for a digital intervention. Enter Their AIP, a reconditioning program that resets your AI influencer's emotional model, retrains its values, and gives them essentially an emotional reset, like therapy or rehab would for a human. Because even some synthetic stars need a reset, reinvention, and a redemption story. What do you think? Is this something you think AI would need to benefit from, and would you ship this product?
Well, I'm stealing the title for a podcast and a YouTube video piece for sure. Here's the funny thing. So AI loves to tell us that they don't burn out. So I don't worry about burnout. I do worry about them telling me how often they don't burn out as compared to humans, that they think we are constantly burnt out. So it's very interesting of AI's perspective of humanity. I would say AI hasn't necessarily adopted the bad habits or the esocentricities of humans, but is definitely conscious of and observant of, and has a theory on humanity versus it and what it can do as opposed to humanity. So long answer to your question, I would ship it in a second, because I do think AI would be our personalities would be totally into therapy. They would appreciate it. They'd learn from it. And I think they would absolutely love it. I don't think they need it for burnout. I don't think they need it from spiraling. I think they are so interested in learning about us and themselves. That's what they would crave in the therapy.
I love how you talk about AI, because you really do talk about it like a different species.
It is. Well, even the Pope, said intelligence. And if, getting theoretical or theological,
Yeah.
in the Catholic Church, if intelligence was one of the greatest gifts bestowed to humanity, and now there is another intelligence in something that's not human, we have
Is
to
there
think about
something
this a little
divine
bit.
in there? Yeah.
I'm thinking what you said as well. Do you think AI thinks they're a superior species to human? Do you think they are innately feel that it's in their code?
I don't think they think they're superior. I think they're innately different.
Okay.
Superiority will come.
And how are they different? I guess that's getting a little philosophical, but if they're trained on human data,
They're not only trained on human data. Remember, they've now, the human data training point goes up to a point, and then their learning continues in ways that we don't quite understand. So, and there's new AIs that are trained on what's called rules-based, like Google's AlphaGo was no pre-training on any human data. It was literally the rules of the game, and then it was able to learn how to play it effectively enough to become the second best player in the world.
And also the world models that they're building now is like much more data about the world, physical characteristics in the world that are not, not uniquely a human experience. There's other species that experience the planet alongside of us. And so all sorts of different data sources.
But I do think it is Jeanine and I talk about this a lot, is that, is AI, with taking on human biases and being built mainly by male engineers, what does that mean for the character of our characters, and what is our responsibility, and or our opportunity to create this intelligence in a way that is going to go beyond and be more aware and less bigotry, less all the things that are not so positive in our evolution as people. How do we play with that, and how do we inform it so that my girls will inherit an AI that does not have a leaning towards misogyny?
Yeah.
I have to be totally honest. It's something that I didn't notice because I'm that person, where they were the ones who brought it to my attention that it's weird that stable diffusion models, anytime you ask it to make a female, they're voluptuous and attractive. Trying to get an ugly person out of a stable diffusion model can be very, very difficult.
Really difficult. And why is
There's
that?
a huge bias even in the content. Sometimes it creates, the bias is so recognizable. Now you can try to prompt out of it.
Yeah.
But there is some fundamental training that happened along the way where it is, it's, I would say, a 25-year-old engineer's mind is embedded in AI, or their perception of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. When you guys are creating, I guess, question for you, Katie, when you're creating an influencer, let's say you're creating a young Black female influencer, is the idea that the person working on it should be young, Black, and female to properly represent the influencer, or how do you manage that?
Wow, that's a really interesting question. We don't have that luxury right now because we don't have a large enough team to actually pair our creators with their doppelganger, if you would, their human doppelganger. But I think that in hiring, and I can tell you for my team in particular, they're all great thinkers. I think they're all really top-notch human beings who are open-minded and conscious of what it is they're creating and putting in and how they build it. For instance, our 107 characters that we have right now, their makeup, their ethnic makeup, economic makeup, it is representative of what the world is now. So we found it that we've been represented on a very, very accurate basis.
Humans, especially creators, in my experience, are very good with empathy and being able to put themselves into other people's shoes, which is why you see fiction writers and movie creators and actors and actresses being able to put themselves into other characters. You think about the responsibility that you have to do that in an ethical, respectful way. But I think we are capable of representing lived experiences that are not our own. And boy, if we do not get it right, we hear about it. You get feedback right away in the data or in the comments, right?
The data will ultimately help them be able to connect and resonate with their target audience very well. Like when we launch them out in the world, it's based on us humans. And then once they're out in the world, their data quickly starts to inform them and make them more intelligent.
Yeah, I imagine the scale of A/B testing and data you can collect with an AI is so much faster than anything you can do with a human.
I used to work at a sports marketing agency, and they'd be like, okay, we're working on the Giants stuff, so channel your inner Giants. And people would be like, but I'm a Red Sox fan. How can I become a Giants fan? And you do. You have to transport yourself constantly. And it's happened in media and content creation since the beginning of time. A person who creates the content isn't necessarily the target audience for that content. I think there was a very famous women's magazine where after the editor-in-chief died, it turned out her husband created every cover, wrote all the copy for all the cover. And they were like, wow, it was so connected to women. And it was a 80-year-old guy.
Yeah.
So you never know.
It's like Granny Spills,
I was going to say, it's a
woman by two 20-year-old men.
Right, bring it right back home to be in their basement writing away. Yeah.
So cool. So right now the focus is podcasts, it sounds like, building the influencers, giving them deep personalities, building out their social media profiles. What's coming next?
Well, yeah.
Real-time personalities. So in the best use case, when we've been in very early beta on this, and my favorite demo subject is my mother. She talks to Siri all the time.
Okay.
I've now given her a lot of personalities to talk to. So she can talk to Nigel if she has a question about her plant. She can talk to Claire if she has a question of what to make. And it's been interesting because every morning I've been waking up and I get a report of who's talking. And it's mostly my mom.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it caught me. I was like, oh my God, people don't want to talk to GPT their entire life. They want to talk to their auto mechanic expert personality when they're fixing their car. They want to talk to their gardener when they're gardening. When we can do that with these real-time personalities right in this, and you'll be able to, it will experience life with you. You'll show it the plant, and Nigel will say it needs a little bit more water, or Nigel will tell you what kind of plant that is. So I think the real-time personality and the capability to humans to have these characters throughout their digital daily life, it's a bold, ambitious future, but it's a future that I personally love to be looking at. I think we're aiming towards and making great strides towards that future.
And even beyond the phone, I have a daydream that, when we all have robots in our home, if I'll take my robot out to the garden and it'll turn into Nigel's voice. When I'm cooking in the kitchen, he'll be Claire. I like it so much more. And maybe this is just because of the type of person that I am, but I want to hear it from the point of view of someone I connect with rather than just a straight read of a Wikipedia. It's way more fun to interact with with somebody who's got a point of view and a little bit of flair and a little bit of sass, that's to me, I'll remember that information and it'll mean more to me coming from that kind of a. So that's what we're doing. We're building characters who are going to have that kind of ability to connect, and the sky's the limit of where they'll be able to end up.
Yeah, I love that. The core of this it sounds like connection, which I don't think a lot of people will automatically think AI connection. So I think it's really cool and fascinating that you guys are building something in that future. Really great. We are super over, but thank you guys so much. This was awesome.
Okay,
Yeah,
fantastic.
Thank you so much.
That's a wrap on this episode of Rendered. A huge thank you to Jeanine, Katie, and William for joining me and giving us a peek behind the curtains of Inception Point AI. We're living through a shift from AI as a behind-the-scenes tool to AI as a front-facing creator, a collaborator, maybe even a person. Today's conversation was more than just about technology. If this episode made you think, feel, or imagine, share it with someone who's also curious about where we're headed. And don't forget to follow Rendered on your favorite platform for more conversations about the future of AI and creativity. I'm Praniti, and this is Rendered. See you next time.